man now becomes the only driver other than Holbert to lead this race, Bill Whittington, car number 56. But that may be short-lived, Brock, as he has not come into the pits for his first stop. When he does, Derek Bell may well take that lead back.
So it's a two-car race at this particular point as Derek Bell gets underway, accelerating up through the gears, out of the Pocono pit lane, and down into turn one. But right now, it should be that Bill Whittington is out on that fast back straightaway, and you got to be sure that he's hustling, trying to put as much distance between him and Derek Bell as possible before he makes his stop.
Well, Al Holbert's first concern, Brock, is with the tires off the outside of that automobile. And they're checking the wear factor on them right now to make sure that their strategy is all in order as far as tire changes throughout the course of this race are concerned.
Right, Steve, and it will also tell Al Holbert, who, by the way, is a very technically minded race driver, how the chassis is working, and if, in fact, they're going to have to make some chassis changes on the next stop. In the meantime, though, it is up to this man, Derek Bell, to gain the distance that they lost in that stop. He's back in third place behind Bill Whittington and that March Chevrolet. In second place, the Bundy Tullius Jaguar. A good race between three different kinds of automobiles here at the Pocono Grand Prix. We'll be right back with more.
Here at the Pocono Grand Prix, Bill Whittington and the Chevy March car number 56 leads, but only due to the pit stop by car number 14. New driver Derek Bell is back in third, trying to make up the ground he lost. Now, Whittington, Brock Yates, is going to have to pit here sooner or later. He's got to be getting low on fuel. In fact, he's coming in right now.
He sure is, Steve, and this is going to be a little bit of a problem for this team because Randy Lanier, who's going to relieve Bill Whittington, is quite a bit smaller than Bill. Physically smaller. That means some seat adjustments. As we see the car stop, there is Randy Lanier, who owns the automobile. He's going to unhook Bill Whittington and help him get out of the cars. The fuel goes on board. They're going to change tires as well. And there comes Bill. Wow, does he come out of that car right on the deck, back on his feet. Now he's going to try to help Randy Lanier get hooked up and get ready to get back into the race. What a flurry, Steve.
I give Whittington a 9.5 on that dive, Brock. There is no lengths to which that man won't go to conserve a tenth of a second on or off the racetrack.
He is a competitor. He just drives that thing as hard as it'll go, and not only that, but he works as hard as he can while he's in the pits.
Well, Derek Bell now in second spot. Somewhere out in front of him is Doc Bundy in the Jaguar. And here goes Randy Lanier, the points leader in this IMSA Endurance Series, a guy who has progressed so much thanks to the tutelage of Bill Whittington. Brock Yates is down in the pit area right now with Bill Whittington.
With Bill Whittington, who put up a valiant effort against that turbo car, but it looks like there's just more boost left than you guys can handle, huh?
No contest. Just, you know, that's the difference between 785 horsepower and 585. You can't overcome it, you know, you're just too strong.
Where were you? I'm sure you were able to handle them in the infield, but big power just came out on the back chute, huh?
Yeah, what happens when you get down in the bank, we can run it flat for a while and the tires give up a little bit, but even at that, he's just too much. You know, he's pulling you anytime he wants to.
I was surprised he pulled you off the line even.
I figured that was going to happen, but, you know, what are you going to do?
Well, in this kind of racing, anything can happen to these automobiles. Remember, 500 kilometers will be run today. And here's our third leader of the day, Doc Bundy, in the number 44 Jaguar. Now, Bundy has not made his first pit stop. The Jaguar, as I mentioned before, is very fuel efficient, but somewhere on the wall is the team owner, Bob Tullius, with his helmet in hand because they can't stay out there too much longer. In fact, already coming in for a driver change is the other team car from Jaguar, the 04 car. Out of the car is Brian Redmond, and getting in, world-class driver Hurley Haywood. Hurley out of the pits in a hurry, Brock.
Right, Steve. They've had that car up among the leaders all day long. They've not held the lead, but been in the top five most of the day, and you can be sure that Haywood, who's a very steady driver, will keep it in contention. Here comes a nose piece for the other Jaguar. That's the Tullius Bundy car. You wonder whether or not when they were dicing with Dale Whittington, both he and Brian Redmond may have had some contact. There's Bob Tullius, the co-driver and owner of this team, waiting for his teammate Doc Bundy to make a stop.
Well, Doc Bundy, Brock, is trying to make use of every drop of racing gasoline possible in that car. That is really the only advantage, if that can be called an advantage, that these cars enjoy. And I emphasize again is that fuel economy. And look at Bundy out there, just hammer down, has not pitted even though all the leaders have been in.
Well, you heard Bill Whittington say it in that interview with me a little bit ago that the die is cast, really. The turbocharger on that Porsche makes the car so powerful that normally aspirated cars like the Jag and the Chevy cars really are at a disadvantage. As we watch Doc Bundy dive into the pits, and there comes Derek Bell in the number 14 962, and that is going to put him back into the lead with a stop by this automobile.
So Bob Julius helping Doc Bundy from the number 44 car, and they have that spare nose piece ready, Brock, but it doesn't look like there's any attention being played to it now.
Right, Steve. You can see the crew chief there in the foreground. He signaled to just hold the piece in readiness, but it looks like the nose piece on that 44 Jaguar is in good shape. So here goes Derek Bell back into the lead. It didn't take him long to get back up there. Steve fell all the way back to third during those pit stops, but boy, it just was inevitable almost after Whittington and then Bundy stopped that he was going to get back into first place.
Well, when you got two drivers on one team, the quality of an Al Holbert and a Derek Bell, it makes it doubly tough, especially when they've got apparently the most powerful car out there.
Right, Steve. That puts a lot of responsibility on this man, Bob Tullius, now in third place. But he's got a whole crew and another car, the Redmond Haywood automobile, as well to worry about. Let's go to Steve Evans with Tullius's co-driver, Doc Bundy.
Little front end damage on the Jaguar. Contact made.
Yeah, I don't understand that, Steve. I was a little bit slower than the March in the infield, but I don't think I was holding him up any. And we come into the hairpin and got balked a little bit, but I was on the inside. He just flat turned right into me. Just...
Which car was this?
57.
You know,
Thunder seems to want to make their way through.
Aggressive young man.
Yeah.
You know, your crew was expecting a few laps before you came in. You were leading it and enjoying it, apparently.
Oh, yeah. I stretched her out as far as I could. We seem to have gotten some of the mileage back into the Jaguar now, and I wanted to take advantage of that as long as I could. And I ran her smack out, and then I called him and told him I'm coming.
At this race distance, is that economy a distinct advantage at this particular distance?
I think so. The longer you can stretch them out, it makes everybody else run harder. And we had fallen back early. For some reason, my car wasn't running at the beginning of the race. When I fired it up on the grid, it sounded like a couple cylinders just weren't there. And we nailed it on the start. I knew that it wasn't right. I figured it was going to be a long day, but after about 5 laps, she cleaned up and started scooting.
Well, scooting it is, but right now the boss is at the wheel. Bob Tullius holding third place, but right behind him, the Vandermeer Martin Porsche March in fourth place. But Derek Bell, Al Holbert in the lead in their 962 at Pocono. We'll be back with more with the Grand Prix.
As far as the third position is concerned here in the Pocono Grand Prix, nothing's changed. It's still quite a dogfight between Bob Tullius and the green and white Jaguar and Cyril van der Merwe in the Porsche March car number 0, Brock.
Right, Steve. There's a lot of traffic out there, don't forget, and we've had some incidents, as we heard Doc Bundy describe, with some little brushes of the bodywork. And look at this. Van der Merwe just moves by Bob Tullius down the front straightaway. That you can be sure there was a little boost applied to that old Porsche coming down through there.
A couple of twists to the knob in that cockpit, no question about it. Now does he back the boost down, Brock, trying to get back to that economy factor and just hold off Tullius? Looks like it.
Well, there's a bunch of traffic down in there, some slower cars that they both got to get by. Boy, that is one slow corner as they move through that field of back markers. Not necessarily back markers, that's not fair to say, because the guys are running in their own GTU and GTO race. As we watch John Morton come off the infield part of the racetrack and head down the back straightaway. That is a car of considerable power, Steve. We've seen it lead a couple of races during the season with John Paul Jr. and John Morton. Right now they're in 5th place. Behind them, that's Don Whittington in the number 57 automobile that brother Dale tangled with Doc Bundy and Brian Redwin with earlier in the race. Probably one of the better little dust-ups that we saw this afternoon.
Well, and all of these cars, Brock, are going to have to make at least one more pit stop. The plan for most of them is one more. And anytime you've got pit stops involved in driver changes, anything can happen in endurance racing.
Oh, absolutely, because these cars take, as we said earlier, and we've seen earlier, it takes a long time to change drivers in these things, and just a little bit of a glitch with an unbuckled seat belt or having some problems, as we see Derek Bell come down the front straightaway. Any kind of a little glitch there, and those driver transfers can just eat up sometimes as much as a minute trying to get out of the pits. So all the advantage that a car like this 962 of Derek Bell and Al Hobart can build up can be eaten up with a bad pit stop. So that's always in the back of everybody's mind. Speaking of Al Hobart, let's go to Steve Evans with him in the pit area.
Well, Al, I think you've got the Blue Thunder team kind of talking to themselves a little bit. Mr. Whittington says every time he thinks he's catching you, you just drive away from him.
Well, I wondered what he was doing back there. I mean, I was trying to run the right pace, and all of a sudden he cut a couple seconds off. My lap times are pretty much within a half a second all the time.
Your first concern when you got out of the car were the tires. You immediately rushed to the tires to look at the wear there.
Well, it's always a problem here because, you know, you got one corner here that you got to pay attention to. It creates a lot of heat in the tire. And
that last turn?
Yes, and we've been trying to take care of them, and I just wanted to see if the way we made the car work, if that's it, and if we have to run harder, whether we can.
Were you pleased with what you saw?
Yeah, they're okay.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement from Al Hobart as a pretty unemotional guy at the racetrack. Randy Lanier, though, he's a very emotional guy, Steve Evans. Boy, he just gets pumped up. When he gets in that automobile, he drives it as hard as he can, but around the pits, he's really a nervous man, especially with two cars in the race today.
Well, I think you'd be a little concerned, too, Brock, and a little excited if you were leading a world-famous series like this in your first year of serious competition. He has to pinch himself every once in a while to make sure it's true.
And absolutely, and of course, he's got about, what, $500,000 worth of race cars out there running around. Don Whittington in the other Blue Thunder Lanier automobile just got it into the dirt there. Hopefully Randy didn't see that. Might have made him a little more nervous.
Don is running in the 5th position right now. Whoa, and problems with Don Whittington. The Morton car number 45 manages to avoid the spinning number 57. And he's a Whittington, all right, just right back into the race like nothing happened.
Absolutely. Well, I hope Randy didn't see that. He said, oh, boy, almost lost one of the old teammates out there. But Don didn't hurt anything. Might have possibly flat spotted a car. Looked like those cars have so much acceleration that he probably just got on the throttle just a little bit early, coming off that slow infield part of the racetrack and onto the back straightaway of the speedway and just looped it. But back underway now in good shape. All right, the Vandermeer Martin car in for a routine pit stop. That is now Tony Martin, who's taken over for Sal Vandermeer, the owner of the automobile. These South Africans doing a very good job holding down 3rd place. Remember, we saw Tony ready to get in earlier in the race and was kind of consigned to cleaning the windshield, but now he's going to have a chance to get out there and show his stuff. And a good driver he is. Although he's going to need to muster all his skill right now because that stop dropped he and his teammate back into 6th place. So let's go to Steve Evans with Cyril Vandermeer, Tony Martin's teammate, in the pit area.
Cyril, the car running solidly out there in 3rd place for a good deal of the time, but your pit stops have come earlier than anybody else's.
We're using it a bit more than we expected, but it was over a 1/3 distance, so that doesn't worry us. But what's happened now is that the boost is stuck at over 2 bar, which is over 1,000 horsepower, and if we can't fix that, the engine is just going to blow itself to pieces.
So it's
almost unscheduled, this last one, yes.
Well, there's some prodigious numbers there, and that number 0 car, that's 1,000 horsepower, Cyril Vandermeer's talking about, out of 183 cubic inches, and that is a graphic example of what turbocharging can do for an engine, Steve Evans.
And there's a lot of areas on this course, Brock, where 1,000 horsepower is a handicap unless it's managed properly.
Right, Steve, and there's some problems with John Morton in the number 45 Chevy March. He's puffing out some oil. It's hard to say what that is. It seems to be coming out of the right side exhaust pipe or coming off one of the headers. It could be an oil leak of some kind that's just working in the corners because it looks like it's cured itself down the straightaway. John's in 5th place right now, and a pit stop for him could put him way out of contention because at present it's Derek Bell and Al Hobart leading here in Long Pond, Pennsylvania in the Pocono Grand Prix.
Well, bad news for one half of the Jaguar team. Clearly, Hurley Haywood has got big problems in the 04 car, and that will leave the job up to the 44 car of Bob Julius and Doc Bundy. So Hurley Haywood from Ponte Verde, Florida, is off in the grass, out of everybody's way, but also out of the race.
And a tough break for him and his teammate Brian Redmond, as well as we see John Morton. Remember, he was smoking heavily on the back straightaway a few minutes ago. Now he's into the pits, and it looks as if he's going to make a routine stop. The crew is going to make some left side tire changes, and his co-driver John Paul getting ready to get on board. And here is Don Whittington, currently 4th place. That's his brother Dale doing the windshield cleaning job right now, and it looks as if Don is going to stay on board, Steve.
Yes, Dale was ready in case Don wanted some relief. He waved him off. Going to get the windshield cleaned, some fresh rubber on that car, and charge on out there. He will, if they hurry here, retain the 4th position. John Paul Jr. was in the pits long enough to slip back to 7th. So the Blue Thunder race cars now occupy the 2nd and the 4th positions. Should Al Holbert and Derek Bell have any problems at all with that Porsche, the Whittingtons are ready to step right up. And here is John Paul Jr. from Atlanta, Georgia, car number 45, the Phil Conti Racing Chevy March. He's headed back out in the 7th spot. Let's rejoin Ed Bruce, who's still chatting with IMSA founder John Bishop.
Thank you, Steve. We're back out in the woods in the Pocono Mountains to get away from all the noise so John and I can talk about IMSA. John, we've had the pleasure of seeing some great IMSA races through the year. What can we expect next year from IMSA?
What you can expect is continued growth of the GT prototypes to the point where we're going to run them by themselves in most of the races. And we're going to run the production-bodied cars, the GTO and GTU cars, by themselves in most of the races. And we think from a promotional standpoint and a crowd-pleasing standpoint and from the manufacturer's standpoint, that's the way to go.
John Bishop, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Let's go back to more racing.
Well, as we saw on the pit stop of John Paul Jr., car number 45, Brock, there was little attention paid to the engine. Maybe somebody should have taken a look because the oil's coming from somewhere.
Well, it seems to be only coming out on fast left-hand turns, Steve, and it could be a breather or something in one of the oil lines or a fitting in the engine that is not hurting the engine overall, just using up some oil. But here is an unexpected stop by the leader. That is Derek Bell coming into the pits very quickly and a bit of a surprise, Steve.
I'll say it's a surprise to everybody because their battle plan was 2 stops only. The car can't possibly need fuel. They're putting some in anyway. It's attention to a tire, Brock, it looked to me.
It sure is, and it seems to be they're looking at the right front tire as Randy Lanier now has the bit in his teeth. You can be sure that he knows that his chief rival in this race is in the pits, and it's now up to Lanier to get by before Derek Bell can get back underway. They've done whatever they have to do, and it looks as if the car's coming down off the jacks and Bell's underway. But the question is, will Randy Lanier get by in time to recapture the lead?
I don't believe he's going to get by, Brock. Here comes Lanier out of that last turn, but Derek Bell escaped from the pits with his lead intact.
He sure did. So Randy Lanier does take off a number of seconds and pares down the lead a bit of this man, Derek Bell, but did not succeed in recapturing the lead. We'll have to try to find out what happened to that automobile because it must have been a very sudden thing. Bell just zoomed off that last very fast turn, number 7, and just darted into the pits, had a quick look at the automobile, and back underway again. As we watch Randy Lanier threading his way through the slower part of the infield, trying to make up some distance, now being balked a little bit by some of the slower automobiles in this race. And now out onto the back straightaway where that big Chevy really gets up to full speed.
The early part of the season, Brock, there was a significant difference between the lap times of Bill Whittington and Randy Lanier co-driving this automobile. But that margin has narrowed. Lanier's time's almost as quick as Whittington's now.
He's been a very quick learner in this business. He's actually only been racing really actively for about 5 years. And for a relative novice, Randy Lanier is just doing a superb job. Another stop for Derek Bell. Second one in 2 consecutive laps. There's got to be troubles with that car, Steve.
Well, this is the break that Randy Lanier and Bill Whittington have been looking for. The normally perfect Porsche has got problems. And now, you were right, Brock, the right front tire is coming off now and being replaced. So the problem is in the area of tires.
Very possible, Steve, that he ran over some debris and cut that right front tire, which caused that pit stop, or the second pit stop at least. And that was the one that gave this man, Randy Lanier, the opportunity to jump into the lead. He couldn't catch up when the first Bell stop. The second one was too much for Derek Bell, and we've got ourselves a new leader. As Derek Bell once again gets underway, and now it's going to be a horse race to the finish. That's got to be frustrating for Derek Bell. It's got to make the Lanier crew very happy, as well as the thousands of spectators, as the Hulbert crew takes a look at that failed tire. Let's go to Steve Evans with the boss, Al Hulbert.
Al, Derek came in a little bit earlier than we might have expected, and then came in again. Tire problems?
Yeah, you know, it's the old thing. You never let the driver call the tire, and we should know better. Just change them all.
So you really...
He called the right rear tire. It was the right front. There's not a driver in the world that can tell you what tire is flat.
Okay, and now with the extra time of that last stop, would you still consider getting in the car and now trying to save some time with Derek?
Oh, he'd have to. See, he didn't have enough laps to get points, so he's got to stay in.
Good luck.
Thanks.
An interesting observation by Al Hulbert, the fact that Derek Bell, a seasoned professional, could not tell whether the right rear or the right front tire was soft. And that particular bad diagnosis cost him the lead here at Pocono. As John Paul Jr. now in the pits once again with his automobile in 7th place. So it's Randy Lanier leading the Pocono Grand Prix, as Derek Bell charges hard to overcome a pair of disastrous pit stops.
After a tire miscue on the part of the Al Hulbert Derek Bell Porsche, this young man, Randy Lanier from Davie, Florida, leads the Pocono Grand Prix. But Brock Yates, he still has one pit stop to go. There's no way he could finish this race with the fuel he has on board.
And we know that there's a horsepower advantage with that Porsche 962. Bill Whittington has already expressed it. So it is up to Randy Lanier, I suppose, to just stay with that automobile as long as he possibly can. But he is going to make that stop you talked about, Steve, right now.
And precious time will be lost as this car comes in for fuel and possibly rubber. And Brock, it'll be interesting to see if there's a driver change, if Bill Whittington gets in. That has been their strategy in earlier races this year, was for Whittington to finish those final laps as Derek Bell is catching up, trying to get the lead before Lanier can get out of the pit.
Well, your one question is answered right now, Steve, because that is Bill Whittington in the background there. He's not going to get into the automobile. Randy Lanier carries on back out of the pits. A quick stop, quick enough, I would think, to prevent this man from not taking the lead. Yes, in fact, Randy Lanier does hold on to the lead. There goes Derek Bell down into turn 1. Randy Lanier is already through turn 2 and onto the infield part of the racetrack. So that was a successful stop for the Blue Thunder team.
But it did narrow the gap between first and second place, and Derek Bell after, and you know he feels so bad about that tire problem. He knows that that was his fault. So he's trying to make up for it right now and driving as hard as he can. He's about 20 car lengths behind Lanier right now.
And you know that Randy is feeling the pressure. Look at that. He's off the racetrack. That could cost Lanier the race. What a shame. He appeared to just get on the brakes a little bit too hard. There he spins the automobile, trying to get it back underway onto the racetrack, doubtlessly frustrated. He just got into that little kinky corner in the infield a little bit too hot and got that car sideways.
Well, he had to be feeling tremendous pressure knowing that Derek Bell was just seconds behind him.
Got to just make him furious, because of all the corners that he could have problems here on this racetrack, especially the big one that Derek Bell is flying through right now, that was the one that he could have gotten into trouble with, that simple little left-hand corner, and that's what perhaps cost him the race, as we said.
Well, the way he was four-wheeling it out in the dirt there, Brock, I thought it was a Whittington in that car for a moment. In fact, let's take a look at it again.
Well, it's a funny little spin, Steve. He seemed to pinch it down into that corner, then all of a sudden the car just darts to the right and off the racetrack. I wonder if perhaps a brake locked on him or something. It just put that car off in the dirt. I'm sure it didn't damage the automobile a great deal, but I'm sure the damage to Randy's pride was significant.
And all he can think of at this point in time is get me back on that asphalt. Where is Derek Bell?
Well, he stomps on the throttle right here and is a little bit too exuberant in applying the power to that big Chevrolet engine, because right here he gets the car sideways again. It doesn't look too serious, but actually probably maybe 3 or 4 more seconds are eaten up with that. So right now Derek Bell finds himself in a very comfortable position, having disposed of Randy Lanier in rather convincing fashion on that with that little spin. Let's go to Steve Evans now with Derek Bell's teammate Al Hulbert for his feelings on the incident.
Well, Al, the little miscue out there on Randy Lanier's part was exactly what you needed to kind of even those things up.
Yes, I think it made it a little easier. The race isn't over yet, but, you know, we were anticipating Derek catching him, but it was going to be real close. He'd have to work for it. And, you know, we did our own share, so I guess it evens it out.
So the breaks fall evenly here at Pocono, one for Derek Bell and one for Randy Lanier, and right now it's basically back to where it was before it all started. Derek Bell now holding the lead, Randy Lanier back in second place, struggling, hanging on, driving as hard as he can to try to narrow the distance, but in his heart he must know that that big horsepower advantage that this automobile has could spell the difference. As Derek Bell weaves his way through that very slow infield section. We've seen a couple of spins here already, and who's to know? Look at this. Suddenly Bell's off the racetrack.
But recovers very quickly. Brock lost a second at the very most, and that really is not going to be enough to help Randy Lanier.
Well, we've seen a couple of spins on this infield portion of the racetrack. It could be that some people are laying down some oil in there. We saw John Morton's car smoking heavily, and that could have been part of the problem with an oil leak. And when you see the leaders start to get sideways, it implies that the racetrack's getting plenty slippery. So you can be sure that this man, Derek Bell, will be watching himself as he gets into that twisty part of the racetrack here at Pocono. There is Bill Whittington, co-driver Randy Lanier, on the radio. And I'll bet, Steve, he's telling him to be careful.
And I think he's also telling him, Brock, Randy will take second place. Don't lose it now. Just stay calm. Don't get in trouble. You're not going to catch that Porsche unless it breaks. We'll take the points and the money that go with second. Here's Bob Tullius running a very strong third in the number 44 Jaguar. Dependability, good fuel economy has been kind to this operation today, Brock. In fact, here comes Tullius in for his last pit stop.
Well, you can see that co-driver Doc Bundy is standing by there, helmet on, ready to get into the automobile. But I doubt seriously whether they're going to make that driver change. As we said earlier, that takes time. And they can't afford any time right now because this man, Don Whittington, and the other Blue Thunder Mart Chevrolet is rapidly closing on third place. So Bob Tullius underway, trying to preserve third place as a charging Don Whittington chases him down. So we have the Bell Holbert Porsche 962 leading here over Randy Lanier and Bill Whittington in second place at the Pocono Grand Prix.
We are in the closing laps of the Pocono Grand Prix, and suddenly car number 56 running second is slowing. I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates and Ed Bruce. There is a problem, Brock, for Randy Lanier.
It sure is. We just saw one of the slower automobiles speed past him on the long back straightaway as Bob Tullius, now in third place, has an opportunity to pass into second as Randy Lanier slides through that very, very fast last turn, about half speed, really, and heads into the pits. It's hard to tell what the problem is. There's no smoke from the automobile. It's doubtful that he's out of fuel. What do you think the trouble could be, Steve?
Oh, it's hard to say, Brock. They have had transmission problems with this car in the past. You remember at Elkhart Lake, that's what put them out of the action. And Bill Whittington gives the car a kick. He's not particularly pleased with it.
Well, you can't blame him as this automobile begins to surge towards second place. They haven't got it yet. If Randy can get it back underway, there's still a possibility of saving it. But now, here comes some smoke from the engine compartment, and that is hardly an encouraging sign. And here comes Bob Tullius.
And at this point, Tullius can glance over, see the door open on the 56 car, and know that right now, as he crosses the start-finish line, the Jaguar is in second place. Right now, you're going to see a very cautious Bob Tullius wanting to keep second. Also, we're looking at a very dejected Randy Lanier as he tries to shed himself of the radio communication lines and all the various other paraphernalia. Just disgusted with 56. There's been happier moments in Randy's career. Let's not forget he's run a number of races along with Bill Whittington this year, but not today. Here is Tullius, the Group 44 car, still out there in second position. Down in the pit area with Randy Lanier is Brock Yates, and as soon as Randy gets his helmet off, Brock will have a word with him.
Randy, a tragic break. What was the problem? What happened to the car?
Couldn't tell you. All dropped out of the car and blew all out really bad. When it blew, it just got all over the car. I spun it over there.
You're running beautifully. The car all of a sudden just started to smoke.
I came in to get gas. Felt like the tires was gone on me. Felt like they went away, but I guess I was losing all somewhere. Made me spin over there.
Wow.
So
Tough break. Super drive otherwise.
back up to Michigan next.
Randy Lanier already looking forward to the next race on the circuit. That's the kind of cloth he's made out of. Here comes Derek Bell of the number 14 962 Porsche. When he crosses that line right there, he will be going on to the last lap of the Pocono Grand Prix. A little less than 3 miles separates Englishman Derek Bell from yet another checkered flag, Rocky.